This government's policy at the moment in terms of accommodation for immigrants coming into the country, I believe, is turning into a serious disaster. I think most people want compassion, but they also want common sense. I think most people have a humanitarian instinct to help those who are really in need, but what they see the government doing is dividing communities across the country. The government is the minister is the Minister for Integration, but nobody can deny that what we're seeing unfolding in towns and cities across the country is disintegration. The government has become massively dependent on the hospitality sector. A parliamentary question received by Aontú from the government has stated that 85% of the locations in which migrants are currently located, asylum seekers, are actually hospitality centres. This is having a significant effect on communities. It reduces the downstream tourism income and jobs of people living in those towns and villages significantly. And places where people celebrate birthdays, communions and weddings are being taken away from them. And as the government is not providing any background help in relation to this. I put a parliamentary question again recently to ask the government how much of its community dividend has it paid out. Only 10 million of the 50 million promised 2 years ago has actually been paid out to communities. And if you look at what it's been paid out on, it's on things like pathways, picnic benches, etc. It's not on the real bread and butter issues of doctors, nurses, accommodation, transport as well. We have this incredible situation at the moment that the government is offering so much to hotels that they can't resist the offer. The D Hotel, for example, was getting an income of €100 per night, and then the government came around with a contract of €312 per night, which is an incredible contract in terms of value for money for this government. We've also found out through a parliamentary question to your department, Minister, that you have bought 37 buildings in the last 12 months for the provision of accommodation to asylum seekers. And you've only been able to confirm to me in parliamentary questions that one of those has actually been used. 1 out of 37 buildings. It's an incredible situation. 85% of all the rooms that were pledged for Ukrainians were never activated. And about 700 of the planned rapid build buildings that you promised 2 years ago, only about half of those are in existence at the moment. And this is because this government doesn't do anything in a rapid fashion. There's a major problem in this government in terms of the delivery of capital projects. It's seen right through society, and this is another example of that. So not only do we have the dysfunction in the terms of provision of accommodation and locations, but we also have the dysfunction in the asylum process itself. Again, an Aontú parliamentary question found out that 76% of asylum applicants in this country are applying in the IPO office, and the government is not asking them how they come into the country. We don't know how they come into the country. We also know that 85% of deportations are not enforced by the government at the moment. And 5,000 people came into the country last year on documents that are either lost, false, are fake documents. And that makes it extremely hard for the government to be able to differentiate between those who need help and those who don't. And that's all anybody wants. Just a system that sufficiently differentiates between those who need help and those who don't. So all this dysfunction has a serious consequence. 970 asylum seekers homeless on the streets of Ireland today, 5,000 people living in direct provision with their application agreed to, successful, and still not being able to move out of direct provision because the government can't provide accommodation to them. And of course, 13,300 people who are homeless in emergency accommodation. The state absolutely does have international responsibilities, but it also has domestic responsibilities. And that means we have to treat people in this country fairly. We cannot have any cohort of people who have a better chance of achieving a necessary resource or get more money than another family in achieving a necessary resource. If you do that, first of all, it's unfair, but secondly, it is a recipe for anger, and it's a recipe for jealousy and disintegration as well. I think it's incredible stuff. I would just say that we've even seen a situation in Tipperary where a local authority that had a contract with a property for homeless people, and then the state came in and went into a bidding war with that local authority for refugees, which had the effect of pushing up the price and displacing one group of people who are in need against another group of people who are in need. And we need a government that is getting serious around these issues. Treat people equally, treat people fairly, absolutely adhere to our international responsibilities, but, Minister, don't forget our domestic responsibilities.
Thanks, Deputy.